power is never in chasing, it's in walking away with strength. Chasing is what drains the soul, strips away your dignity, and makes you a servant to someone who never saw your worth in the first place. When you chase, you hand over your energy, your peace, and your pride to someone else. You tell them that they are the prize, and you are the desperate competitor running after something that should have naturally been yours if it was truly meant to be. Chasing is exhausting because it places your value in the hands of another person, but walking away with strength reclaims it. Walking away does not mean weakness, nor does it mean defeat. It is the highest form of self-respect. It is the moment you declare that your life, your time, and your heart are too precious to be wasted begging for recognition. It is the courage to leave behind what no longer serves you, even when your emotions scream to stay. Strength in walking away is not about coldness, it is about clarity. You are not shutting down your heart. You are elevating it above the noise of manipulation, games, and half-hearted attention. People often think power lies in proving your loyalty, in holding on tighter, in showing how much you care. But in reality, those who see your value don't need convincing. Those who truly want you will meet you halfway, they will invest, they will reciprocate. The ones who force you to prove your worthiness are the ones who never deserved you in the first place. That's why walking away becomes the ultimate power play. It communicates without words. I don't need you to define me. I don't need you to complete me. I don't need to run after you because I was whole before you, and I will be whole after you. When you walk away, you trigger something that chasing never could respect. Human nature always undervalues what comes too easily. If you are always available, always forgiving, always proving yourself, you eventually become invisible. But when you step back, when you refuse to chase, when you choose your dignity over their games, suddenly they see what they lost. Absence shines a spotlight on presence. What they took for granted now becomes rare, and rarity creates value. The power isn't in convincing them to love you. It's in showing that your love for yourself will never be compromised. Walking away also brings an unshakable peace. Chasing keeps you restless, always questioning, always waiting for a text, a call, a sign. It puts your emotions in a cage where they depend on someone else's actions to feel free. But when you walk away, the chains break. You are no longer tied to the unpredictable storms of someone else's mood or attention. You reclaim control over your own life, and nothing is more liberating. The freedom to say, I choose me, is the greatest strength a person can ever discover. Because in the end, peace is power, and no amount of chasing will ever give you peace. It only deepens the chaos. People often confuse love with attachment, loyalty with desperation, and effort with sacrifice. Yes, love requires effort, but it does not require you to lose yourself. Yes, loyalty is noble, but blind loyalty to someone who disrespects you is not loyalty. It's self-betrayal. Walking away is the line you draw when you refuse to betray yourself. It's the quiet but thunderous announcement that your standards matter more than your fears, that your self-worth is not negotiable, and that your heart deserves more than crumbs. And here is the paradox: when you walk away with strength, often the very people you walked away from come running back. Not because they suddenly changed into someone better, but because they finally realized they lost something irreplaceable. They realize the control they thought they had is gone. They realize the attention they thought was permanent has vanished. They realize your silence hurts more than your words ever did. This is the power they never expected you to hold. The power of not needing them. The world teaches us that love is about holding on, about fighting to the end, about never giving up. But what the world forgets to teach is that sometimes the bravest fight is walking away. It takes strength to endure pain, yes, but it takes even greater strength to release it. It takes courage to invest in someone, yes, but it takes even greater courage to withdraw when it becomes clear the investment is one-sided. Walking away is not abandonment, it is self-preservation. It is choosing to protect your soul over protecting an illusion. You will notice something magical when you stop chasing, you start attracting. When your energy is no longer consumed by proving yourself to the wrong people, it becomes magnetic to the right ones. Your confidence rises, your standards sharpen, your aura shifts. People are drawn to those who respect themselves because self-respect is rare and rarity commands admiration. By walking away, you create space for people who will value you naturally without conditions. You don't have to chase when what you deserve is already running toward you. Walking away also teaches you discipline. The discipline to control your emotions instead of being controlled by them. Anyone can stay where it's comfortable, anyone can cling to what's familiar, anyone can chase what they fear losing. But it takes a warrior's mindset to say, I love myself more than I fear losing you. Discipline is power, and power belongs to the one who controls their steps, not the one who runs recklessly after someone who doesn't care. Understand this. You were not created to chase love. You were created to embody it. You were not designed to beg for respect. You were designed to command it. Every time you walk away with strength, you teach the world how to treat you. You teach people that your kindness is not weakness, your love is not desperation, and your loyalty is not slavery. You show them that if they cannot meet your standards, they will lose access to you. And that is the ultimate power, because the rarest souls are those who can give deeply, but also leave when they are not valued. So remember, chasing may win you attention for a moment, but walking away secures you respect for a lifetime. Chasing may keep someone near, but walking away ensures that only the right ones stay. Chasing may soothe your fear of loss, but walking away heals your fear forever. The greatest victories are not in the battles we fight to keep others. They are in the battles we win within ourselves, the battles that prove our strength, our discipline, and our self-love. True power is not in the pursuit of what does not want to be caught. True power is standing tall in your worth, turning away from what insults it, and refusing to be anything less than the masterpiece you are. Walking away is not giving up, it is leveling up. And the moment you realize that, you become untouchable, unstoppable, and unforgettable. Silence can scream louder than words because silence carries a weight that language can never capture. Words are often thrown carelessly, repeated without meaning, spoken to manipulate, or used to disguise truth, but silence is pure, sharp, and undeniable. When someone withdraws their voice, when they choose stillness instead of noise, the impact lingers far deeper than an argument ever could. Silence is the echo of self-respect, the signal of boundaries, and the undeniable proof that you no longer need to explain yourself. It is the most underestimated weapon, because people expect confrontation, they expect anger, they expect words. What they never expect is for you to say nothing at all, and that is where the power lies. When you stay silent, you leave people with their own thoughts, their own guilt, and their own emptiness. Words can be dismissed, ignored, or argued against, but silence leaves no defense. It forces the other person to listen to themselves, to confront their own actions, to sit with the weight of what they've done. It becomes a mirror they can't escape. Silence doesn't beg for attention, it commands it. It makes the absence of sound louder than any scream. That's why those who truly value you fear your silence more than your anger. Because anger still shows you care, but silence shows you've risen above caring at all. Silence is not weakness, though the world often mistakes it for submission. It is restraint, and restraint is power. Anyone can explode, anyone can shout, anyone can use words as weapons, but not everyone can master the discipline of staying quiet when provoked. Silence is self-control. It is choosing not to let others pull you into their chaos. It is refusing to play the game of endless back and Fourth, where nothing is ever resolved but energy is always wasted. Silence means you no longer need to win the argument because you've already won your peace. You're no longer fighting to be understood because you understand yourself enough. That calm, unshakable presence speaks volumes without saying a thing. There is also a beauty in silence because it magnifies presence. People always notice when a voice they were used to suddenly disappears. They notice the text that isn't answered, the call that isn't returned, the good morning message that no longer comes. Silence is the loudest alarm because it shows a shift. It says, I no longer give you access to me, without a single word spoken. It teaches people the value of what they had when your voice was there, and the pain of its absence when you decide to take it away. That absence is unforgettable because it forces them to realize that attention, care, and energy were privileges, not guarantees. Silence can heal too. Sometimes it's not about sending a message to others. It's about giving peace to yourself. Words often dig deeper wounds when emotions run high, but silence gives space for clarity. It's in the quiet moments that truth reveals itself. It's in the silence of reflection that strength rebuilds. Choosing silence is not avoidance, it is wisdom. It allows you to step back, to protect your energy, to regain perspective. It gives you time to rise above impulses and see the bigger picture. In a world filled with noise, silence becomes a sanctuary where you regain control over your own mind. People often underestimate silence because they fear it. They fear being left alone with their thoughts. They fear the truth that comes when the distractions of conversation are gone. That's why silence is powerful. It exposes reality. It unmasks lies. It makes it impossible to hide. When you respond to betrayal, disrespect, or manipulation with silence, you are no longer giving the offender your energy. You're no longer validating their actions with your reaction. You are declaring without speaking that they are not worth your words, and that message burns deeper than any argument. Silence also reshapes relationships. If you argue constantly, people get used to your voice, your passion, your fight. They expect it, but silence shocks them, it unsettles them, it breaks the pattern, and in breaking the pattern, silence gains control. It shifts the power dynamic because suddenly the one who used to chase, explain, and defend is no longer available. Silence is the final word, and it is louder than any explanation could ever be. The most haunting silence is the silence of indifference. Anger still invests energy, still shows some form of connection. But silence that comes from indifference is final. It says, you are no longer a priority. You no longer have influence over me. You no longer exist in my world. That silence is not just absence. It is a declaration of freedom. It's the mark of someone who has outgrown the need for approval, the need for closure, the need for validation. Indifference through silence is the most deafening scream you could ever deliver. Silence is timeless. Think of history. Moments of silence are held for the most profound events, for remembrance, for respect, for honor. Why? Because silence carries a depth words cannot reach. It binds people together in reflection without a single syllable spoken. It holds space for pain, for reverence, for truth. In the same way, your personal silence becomes sacred. It becomes a boundary that protects your dignity, a statement of your strength, and a weapon that cuts without raising a hand. When you understand the value of silence, you stop wasting words where they don't matter. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop begging people to see your worth. Silence becomes your shield. Silence becomes your sword. It doesn't mean you lack voice. It means you choose when and where to use it. That choice is power. That choice makes your presence undeniable because when you finally do speak, your words will carry weight. They will not be lost in noise. Silence can scream louder than words because silence is truth unfiltered. Words can deceive, they can flatter, they can cover up, but silence cannot be faked. It shows where someone stands. It reveals whether they care, whether they respect, whether they value. It is in silence that true intentions are exposed, and those who pay attention always hear it clearly. So the next time someone expects your anger, your explanation, your desperate fight, give them your silence instead. Let them sit in the echo of everything they thought you would say but didn't. Let them hear the weight of your absence. Let them realize that silence is not emptiness. It is everything they cannot ignore. In the end, silence will always be the loudest scream, because silence carries not just sound, but the soul of strength, the depth of dignity, and the unshakable voice of self-respect. Self-respect is the ultimate move no one sees coming, because in a world where people expect you to beg, bend, and compromise, choosing yourself becomes the most shocking act of power. Most people are used to control, to manipulation, to others bending under pressure. So when they meet someone who refuses to betray their own dignity, it rattles them to the core. Self-respect is not arrogance, it is not pride, and it is not coldness. It is the quiet fire that protects your soul from being dimmed by others. It is the invisible armor that shields you from the weight of disrespect, the temptation of weakness, and the trap of seeking validation where it doesn't exist. Self-respect is not the loud announcement of independence. It is the unshakable inner truth that says, I know my worth, and I refuse to sell it cheap. That truth, when lived fully, becomes a force no one can predict and no one can control. People expect reaction. They expect you to argue, to defend yourself, to chase after them, to fight for attention, to bend your standards in fear of losing them. That is the script most follow, and that's why they assume they can take advantage. But when you choose self-respect, you flip the script. Instead of begging, you walk away. Instead of explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, you let your silence speak. Instead of lowering your value to be accepted, you raise your standards and wait for those who can meet them. That's the move no one sees coming, because it's not desperate, it's decisive. It's not emotional chaos, it's emotional control. It's not weakness hidden under anger, it's strength rooted in clarity. Self-respect changes every interaction. With it, you no longer tolerate being treated as an option, because you know you are a priority. You no longer accept crumbs because you know you bring the table. You no longer allow others to play games with your heart because you are not entertainment. You are legacy. Self-respect makes people pause. It makes them realize that your love is not desperate but disciplined, that your loyalty is not blind but chosen, that your presence is not guaranteed but earned. This shift shakes the ground under those who thought they had control over you. They thought you would always answer, always forgive, always stay, but self-respect walks away when the cost of staying becomes your dignity. The beauty of self-respect is that it doesn't need permission. It doesn't ask anyone to agree. It doesn't beg anyone to understand. It doesn't depend on the approval of those who don't even value themselves. Self-respect is a solo move. It is yours alone, and it shines whether people applaud it or resent it. That's why it's so powerful, because no one can take it from you unless you give it away. And when you finally learn to guard it, to live by it, to let it guide every choice, you become untouchable. The world cannot break someone who refuses to break themselves. Self-respect also redefines what love looks like. Without it, love becomes attachment, desperation, and sacrifice of self. With it, love becomes choice, abundance, and mutual growth. You stop clinging to those who drain you because you realize that love without respect is slavery. You stop chasing those who belittle you because you know your soul was not created to be humiliated. You stop accepting halfway affection because you recognize that a heart like yours deserves fullness, not fragments. This realization shakes people. They thought you would stay no matter how little they gave, but when self-respect takes over, you refuse to settle. You refuse to beg for attention like it's a favor. You refuse to let someone else decide your value. That refusal is liberation. What makes self-respect the ultimate move is that it surprises not only others, but sometimes even yourself. When you've been conditioned to believe you must fight, argue, or prove yourself, choosing to step back feels foreign, even frightening. But the moment you do it, you feel the shift. You feel the weight lift. You realize you no longer need to exhaust yourself trying to change someone's mind. You no longer need to explain why you deserve better. You simply live it, and when you live it, everything around you changes. People who don't respect you fall away, and people who truly value you gravitate toward you. Opportunities that align with your worth appear, and those that would have drained you disappear. Self-respect becomes the magnet that attracts what belongs to you. Self-respect is also discipline. It's saying no when temptation whispers yes. It's walking away from the easy path because it compromises your soul. It's standing firm when the world mocks you for not conforming. It's refusing to lower your bar even when loneliness knocks at your door. Discipline is not glamorous, but it builds unshakable strength. And that strength becomes undeniable when life tests you. Self-respect is not only about how others treat you. It is about how you treat yourself. It's about what you feed your mind, how you care for your body, how you use your time, and what standards you live by. When you respect yourself fully, you no longer tolerate anything less than alignment with your highest self. That is when you truly become unstoppable. The reason self-respect shocks people is because it removes their control. They can't manipulate you with fear because you'd rather lose them than lose yourself. They can't trap you with guilt because you know your heart is clean. They can't use your loyalty against you because you know loyalty without reciprocity is slavery. Self-respect cuts every chain others try to place on you. It doesn't need to shout or prove it simply acts, and its actions speak louder than anything else. The quiet act of choosing yourself is the loudest statement you could ever make. Self-respect also brings peace, and peace is rare. People think chasing others will give them love, but it gives them anxiety. They think proving themselves will give them acceptance, but it gives them exhaustion. They think lowering their standards will give them belonging, but it gives them emptiness. Peace comes not from winning someone over, but from walking away when you know you've already won yourself. Peace comes from knowing you did not betray your dignity for temporary comfort. Peace comes from knowing you chose the harder path because it was the truer path. That peace is priceless, and it cannot exist without self-respect. In the end, self-respect is not just a move. It is the foundation. It is the root of confidence, the seed of success, the protector of love, and the guardian of your soul. Without it, you will always chase, always settle, always bend. With it, you will always rise, always attract, always command. People won't see it coming because the world teaches conformity, obedience, and compromise. But when you stand tall, when you refuse to break, when you choose dignity over desperation, you become the game changer. You become the rare force that cannot be swayed, the presence that cannot be ignored, the soul that cannot be broken. Self-respect is the ultimate move no one sees coming because it doesn't shout, it acts. It doesn't beg, it walks. It doesn't chase, it attracts. And once you master it, you'll realize you never needed the approval of others to be powerful. You only needed the approval of yourself. And that approval, once earned, makes you unstoppable. And when it all comes down to the final moment, when the dust of arguments, games, and broken promises settles, self-respect is the one thing that stands unshaken. It's the quiet force that tells the world you may bend, but you will never break. You may hurt, but you will never surrender your dignity. People will come and go, love will test you. Life will challenge you, but the one constant that keeps you unmovable is how much you value yourself. The moment you finally decide that your worth is not up for negotiation, that your heart is not a bargain to be discounted, that your presence is a privilege and not a right, you rise above everything that tried to keep you small. That is the power play no one expects, because they are too used to seeing people crumble when abandoned, too used to watching souls beg for love, too used to power being handed away for scraps of attention. But you are different. You carry the ultimate weapon, self-respect, and once you choose it above everything else, you are no longer just living, you are leading. You are no longer seeking validation, you are setting the standard. And nothing is louder than thought.